What's going on, everybody? We're live. STL Sunday, 3D Printing Sunday. Today, a little bit less about 3D printing, but not entirely. Project that, since we've been bringing STL Sunday back, I've been mainly trying to spend time on doing projects that I need to get done anyway. And one, like you've been seeing for the last several weeks, has been my Class 1 project. But for that, I need a bumper. Now, we're going to go through the steps of kind of designing a bumper, and you could take a lot of this and design it in the way that you would be doing for a 3D printed bumper. Granted, I don't think that 3D printing is a great place for bumpers generally. Some people run them. I'm just saying I don't think it's a great space. But even if you wanted to design it for that, or you wanted to design for something that you want to make in another method, which is kind of the way that I'll be doing, hopefully some of this will be helpful. So that's the idea. Again, we're using Fusion 360. You can get Fusion 360 for free. I'm using a paid version because I use it for other reasons as well. But that's a little bit of background. Switching over, here is the project that you've seen many times over and over and over. But what we have here is the model for my Class 1 Jeep, or one of the many, many file models that I have. I've created a new file for this project, which is for the bumper specifically. So I've saved this file as my front bumper file. I've already cut the front of my chassis off because that's the plan for this. That is going to be now, oftentimes or almost never will you have the full information of your vehicle in CAD, and I get that. So the easy thing to do is that rarely do you need all of this information either. Normally you just need to know, you could go take a couple of measurements from your vehicle of the outside spacing of your frame rails, because that's likely where you're going to mount them. So you need those dimensions, and then from there, you really just need to know how far away you need to stay from something. So I've got a lot of info on the screen here, a lot of info that is really not needed. It just is helpful in my situation. And I guess more information is usually not a bad thing. Usually. So that is a little bit of what we've got going on. Now, the one thing with bumpers is that you're usually going to be dealing with a lot of angles and, different planes and angles. So it's going to be a little bit, there's going to be a lot of little things, and I'll try and explain them as I get into the situations where it's a little bit different from the norm. Maybe we'll find something helpful that I can help point out. I'll try and pay as close of attention to the chat as possible, because a lot of this is going to be a little bit extra as far as some of this stuff goes. So really, we need a starting point. Now, like I said previously, you're normally not going to have all of this info. So what I would suggest doing is, even if you have none of this stuff, all of this is off, you don't have anything else to look at. Basically, what I would suggest that you do is create a new plane by grabbing the center, and then you need to measure the width of your frame rails. I'm going to act like I don't have the full 3D model of everything. And I'm just going to grab my calipers, which you can kind of see here in front of me, and just measure my frame rails in person. So just under 70, we're going to call it 73. So, but rather than, we're going to do 73 divided by 2, because I want to keep everything on center line. So that's the route that I would suggest that you go, is by creating. Now, there's a lot of planes in here, and that's because obviously, I've got construction off. And that's because there's a ton of other info in this design file. But what I would suggest that you do is create a plane like that, and then start. I can't 100% do that in here because if I start drawing this bumper at the origin offset, then I'm going to have a bumper in the middle of my chassis. So that's the long explanation for why I'm doing what I'm doing, or not doing whatever. So basically, I'm going to create a sketch on a frame rail to give myself the mounting point locations. I'm going to turn off some things real quick just to get stuff out of the way. We created it on this frame rail. I'm going to hit P for project, and I'm just going to select the major portion of the. Let's just select all of these things. I'm just going to do that so that I have that, and I'm going to draw a vertical line. I'm using the panhard mount that is on here, so I need to stay away from it anyway, but I'm just going to create a dimension to define that. I can probably go with 6 and still dodge it. Indeed. I'm going to hit E for extrude and select all of those profiles. And now, since I am doing this for steel fabrication, I need to look at how far I need to extrude this. If it was 3D printing, I'd want to go 4, 5, 6 millimeters because you want enough material there to hold up. But for steel, I'm probably going to use something like 0.09 maybe. Actually, I've got some scale metal supplies, fabrication parts, and what does he sell? He's got, where are they at? He's got these bumper tabs here. These are probably closer to 1/8 inch. I bet they are. They'll probably measure like 0.119 or something. Oh, this is 3 millimeter, like on the dot. Is it? How did he get 0.1175? So yeah. I'm just going to go 0.115 inches. Oh, it's going to put a V logo in there for me, which is not what we want. And I'm going to do new body, of course. And it's going to make us watch it think for a minute. I don't know why it does that only when I stream. Normally I can just be, and it's not even a CPU usage thing. It's just odd. So basically I was just creating a little plate here to give myself a base. Now you can see in my grill design, I had like a little bit of a cutout there because I was planning on this ahead of time. So that's why. Sheet metal should always be in millimeters, except when you have to buy it in imperial because you live in the United States. I'm all for the metric system, but you also have to know. You also have to know where you're buying things and make sure that you're being reasonable. So I'm going to edit that. No, I'm going to leave that. So for now, I just given myself a base. It really doesn't mean anything. Now, the one thing is that bumpers are kind of a pain in the ass because it's hard. Why not the inside of the frame rails? Because if I was going to try and make a bumper fit on the inside of the frame rails, for one, if I'm coming straight in, I'm going to end up with a very thin piece. And otherwise, then you're dealing with something that's going to be very tolerance dependent. You're going to have to make sure that it's perfectly cut and perfectly fit to slide into that C channel. So I would much rather, for in the real world and for the ease of design, there's a reason that I don't want to go to the inside of a C channel. It just makes things more difficult. Whereas the outside is a nice flat surface. As long as you have something that will mate up to that surface, you're going to be able to drill and bolt through. So yeah, there is no reason I would, there's possibly reasons you could go to the inside, but functionally it's not worth it really. That's why basically all the aftermarket bumpers that you buy that aren't a machined aluminum type thing, they basically go to the outside, and that's for that reason. So there we go. Why didn't you cut your frame rails straight? Would make fab easier. I mean, if I cut my frame rails straight, it would put it back behind the grill of this. And then I've got to deal with all of that where I'm going to extend it a little further, and it's actually not going to make it easier for me. It's going to make it, this will make it easier for me because I have more frame rail. So having more distance, that gives me more room to put 2 screw holes through here to bolt the bumper on. If I cut that straight, I would have almost no room, and then I would have to be dealing with the distance of a panhard mount. So there's lots of reasons for all of these things. You need to give yourself room for all of the fabrication stuff. And that applies for 3D printing as well. Now, 3D printed, could you go to the inside of the frame rail? Technically, probably. It would be reasonable because you can also, you're being pretty exact. Now, the other thing is that this chassis, I do have the cross brace in here, and I have the cross brace trimmed to end right before the grill. And that will likely be how I will trim the real world piece. You can see that my grill actually extends down into the frame rail pocket, and that's to kind of cheat the look of the height of the grill. I want it to appear a little bit higher. I think that it'll look cooler. So that's why I did that. Just helps give me a little bit more visual depth in the body rather than being squished as much. So yeah, we got that. Now, again, okay, we're getting back to the style part of it. Style of bumpers is kind of a pain in the butt. And oftentimes it's kind of a bad idea to try and do this live because I'll probably change my mind back and forth and back and forth. So we have to kind of figure out what I want to do here. Now, I also have rules that I have to go by because this is being done for a class 1 competition vehicle. And for class 1 competition, it says that my bumper has to be as wide as the widest part of my windshield, which is up here, That is an important detail. I have to, and that has to come down. I want it to clear tires, which I do luckily have in my file. Let's see, the passenger side one will not be the problem. So if we want to just take a look at things, this is going to come down. It's just, let's just do a sketch. We can talk about this in the actual real world, call it whatever you want. So I projected that little arc there. I'm going to put a line on it and just drag it down, make sure that it's vertical. And then I'm going to do a tangent constraint on that line to make sure that it puts me at the absolute widest point. So we can see now that I've got to go to about that radius return of that fender, and that my tire, is all the way up here. And I've got the tire sat so that it kind of shows my worst case scenario. Therefore, I need to make sure that my bumper comes over, and then I'll want it to come up to dodge that tire so that I can keep the tire, so that I can keep the bumper as clearance, as far tucked away as possible. I also need to make sure that the bumper sticks out as far as the tires when they're in their straight position, because that's another rule for the class. I'm pretty sure that the bumper has to be out as far as the body. Am I making that up? Someone in here, class 1 rules. For some reason, I'm drawing a blank. And pretty sure that bull bars don't count, but now I don't have a straight version of the of the tires in my model, which I should do, but I just don't have right now. But anyway, I'm just measuring. So I need to be basically 1 inch forward of the grill. Something to note. Let's see if I have missed any comments here. Come on, Josh. You know you want to design tabs for the inside of frame rails and have. I mean, I could, but like honestly, they would also be weaker because I have less material to deal with. Like, I get that it would be kind of fun and all that, but it's weaker, and I've got a chassis brace on the inside, so it just for every reason it doesn't make as much sense. A little bit about other stuff. So okay, good. We're pretty much on track with comments. This one again, I know this is a tough one to really talk through. And since I'm doing a lot of this, this is the process that I would have to go through. I'm just happen to be talking it out on a live video. So I created that line, which is just going to hang out there. That's the widest point of my windshield. Now I also need that one that we just discussed, which was the how far it needs to stick out. So I'm just going to grab a horizontal surface somewhere up near here. How about that one? And I'm going to make that line that sticks basically 1 inch forward of the grill, which is a ways, not that far, thankfully. Let's go 26 millimeters. Now, I won't want to keep these like to the absolute. I'll probably want to add a couple of millimeters past, but so we've got about that. So also this line here is basically the exact point where the front of the VS410 chassis was previously. So I'm cutting it all off so that I can just do a bumper portion there, and I'll be able to keep it much higher because this came down and out before, where I probably don't want anything lower than the lowest point of where I cut this bumper or the chassis off already. So we're going to end that sketch. That just gives me a couple of reference sketches out there. Those are just for my own. They'll kind of continue to live while I draw other things, hanging out, reminding me of what I've done wrong in life. I'm going to do another sketch now, and this is when we're going to start getting into actual like bumper style. So we can do this off of whatever we want. Let's do it off the actual left-right plane of the origin. So this is dead center. That way I can start mirroring things left and right. See that little dot out there? That's that point that I have to get to. So I'm doing this because I'm going to just start throwing some sketches together. Like I said, I don't want anything lower than that chassis, or not, at least not by much. So let's just throw a little bit of a profile together and see what we end up with. I'm thinking, how about go about like that for right now. I'm going to throw some dimensions on this just so that we can keep this thing constrained. Well, let's do a construction line down to this. Am I remembering this wrong, or is there a rule in class 1 where the tires can't be over the bumper any position? I believe it's when the tires are straight. So I don't think that it has anything to do with turned and any of that. I think it's just when the tires are straight, the bumper has to be further out than the tires. So I'm just going to, these are just dimensions. These are not, what if I go I'm doing this so that I can start modifying and changing as I want later, but I need a point that I can start from so that I can so that it gives me something to modify as we go. Two and 8 is fine. Okay. So I did want to throw a bit of a radius. So this is what I was thinking. I knew when I put a radius on this, it was going to shorten this up quite a bit. So that was my that. And a 2 millimeter bend radius is already pretty tight. So we'll see. We can get in the whole sheet metal design of this. I'm not going to try and talk too much about today. Okay. I'm just going to extend this out of, oops. I'm trying to put something down so we can get back to talking about more CAD specific things. 1.5. Will you 3D print it and adjust as necessary? I may. Depending on how everything goes, I think that that's something that I may do. 3D printing things like this definitely could help. So we're gonna go. Let's just go with 1 millimeter for now. That's fine. That's very thin if you were talking about 3D printing. I mean, even for steel, that's what 0.0254, which is still okay. So I just created a random profile. Now, kind of random. We're gonna go symmetric as far as an extrude, and we're just gonna bring that out. I want it to be basically only as wide as the bumpers, which we know is 73 millimeters, right? Or is the frame rails? We probably need to add the thickness of our material. So go to about like that, and I'm gonna go new body. So that would give me the, kind of an idea of a basic start to this thing. I don't have a radius on this, which is something I probably could have done. I'm just going to do that real quickly. That's just for my own. Yes, you could do it in the previous part, but I'm going to do that. I'm going to keep the same bend radius, and it did that one too. Okay, cool. So it's interfering there a little bit. Those are things that like I would just grind the chassis as needed. I likely will have this laser cut just because why not build a 2 bumper instead of a shut? Man, I know, Brett. I thought about it too. Like that's the whole thing with these, like which does a two. I mean, a 2 bumper. I guess we could do and get a little bit more. I always just like plate bumpers. And I wasn't going to do plate all the way up. I was only going to do a plate and then do tube on it. But we could also look at doing more tube. I'm going to do a quick thing here. So I did a sketch on the side of our existing, whatever, bracket to mount this. And then I'm going to project both of those. And then if I was, if we continue, go down and then just say tie it in. And then I could basically, we could extrude that way. Now I don't want to join all of it. I would just do new body so that it didn't combine everything at once. I could turn off bodies and models and whatnot. And then if I joined them at that point, it would at least give me a shape of something that I could trim later or whatnot. But then I would have a shape that would actually give me some sort of flow to so that my sheet metal could go onto it. But we could do tube. It's a good option. I agree. So, okay, let's look at doing tube. So we're gonna not undo everything basically. I'm just going to stop at that point. I'm gonna delete one sketch. And I'm just gonna hide that main body. Now, if I'm doing a tube bumper, I still have to have exactly the same, I need a mounting plate. So say we still use that. Tube is a little bit more interesting to sketch. We've talked about it a little bit in the past. So we need a sketch. Now we know we have a couple of these points that are hanging out there already that we need. Add a tube to that, it would look good. It's still an option. That's why I didn't delete it. It's still there. I can still compare back and forth. But let's look at doing a tube bumper. I'm trying to just kind of think in my head how I would want this or where I would want it. I'm going to turn my tires back on. Now, this tire location is basically at what we call like full bump or full stuff. That's all the way up and turned. So normally the tire sits quite a bit lower, but you can see even at this point, that's when the tire is straight, that will be at that same point. So if I use this plane, which kind of worked out, is anyone else seeing smoke from his ears? That's the nature of design. Just you have a lot of thinking, and normally you're not talking it out loud. So it's just how it goes. So yeah, there is always smoke, but what's the saying? Where there's smoke, there's fire. Gotta have the good stuff. So let's just do let's just start at that point and just draw some sort of, how would I want this thing to look? I know I have to have a tube out at this far at least. So I know I don't want anything out there for too long, but I need to have it come out there, and then I can easily have it come back in. Because I don't want it to have to be out for so long. So I'm going to just do something like this for now. We have to throw stuff together. Otherwise you'll never end up getting anywhere. So I'm just going to create a couple of tubes and then see how they look, and we can adjust from there. I'm going to throw a radius on this of about 10 millimeters, which is close to the bend radius of the center line of my tube for my solid rod tube bender. If I use, actually even for my regular tube bender for DOM. So I'm just going to hit finish on that sketch. We're going to do create pipe. We're going to select our path. Oh, we got to hit chain selection first because it was unclicked. It's already set to 4.763, which is 3/16 of an inch. So we can go with something like that. New body, that's fine. So my idea for getting up to this point was previously to have a tube, but it was going to kind of follow the the grill fender area, and I was basically just gonna have a tube that kind of comes out here and then ends, just to meet the rules. I don't really want it. I don't really like it, but I could do one that follows the top shape of the grill slash hood as well, maybe, and that would maybe tie some things in together, especially if I add a little bit of a stinger or a very small stinger off the front of this for like some bull bar. 4.676 is brake line. No, I use DOM tubing, not brake line. Brake line is weak. You can use brake line. It'll make parts and it'll look the part, but brake line is fairly weak. So I suggest getting like DOM tubing. You can get it from Stock Car Steel, or Scale Metal Supplies also sells it. Okay, let's do a construction plane. We're going to select the front of our fender here, and we're going to bring it off like 3 millimeters. Yes, 3 millimeters. Sounds good. And my construction surfaces are turned off. So I turned construction on down here in the bottom in my tree. It was just clicked off. So I'm going to do a new sketch on that plane. We're just going to throw some more stuff together. I need to go a little bit. I probably want to bring it up so that it's in front of the fender. Just gives me max clearance. We're going to draw something like that. And then it would come down. And I don't have the actual intersection point of this line yet, but we could do that. Vid just says, you're 10K into this rig. It's just the rules really, and it's just for the rules really isn't an option at this point. It is though, because it's all for an event. I can easily change a bumper though. If I don't like it, it's a bumper and I can easily get that changed. So I'm not concerned about it for that reason. One thing I can do is we can go back in. I hate going to sketches on this because I've got so many. Find in browser. See, it doesn't scroll down to it for me. This is a bad part of having so many sketches in a model, or so much information. So there we go. Turn that on. And then I can do a coincident constraint between. We're gonna that and it doesn't want to do it. Stupid. Okay. Oh, it's that's what happened. There we go. And try it again. It got a horizontal constraint on there, and that was an issue. It still doesn't like it. Let's see if it'll allow me to do it once I turn 3D sketch on. There. Turn it back off now. All right. Let's throw a couple of. Let's go 12 millimeters. What does that look like? Things being a little slow. How it goes on stream days. And with too much stuff in the model. So I'm going to just throw a couple more dimensions on here. I'm going to try and force this thing up. Obviously not enough. Well, yeah, 3 should be. 2.5 even, but that's fine. What's that? Let's go with 15 for now. I'm going to do a parallel constraint between the grill and this. Let's see what that looks like. That doesn't look bad. I don't hate that. And then we'll force this 2.5. It didn't. Oh, it's in 3D space, so it's a little bit of a. I'm already unhappy. Unhappy because it pushed my sketch off of that plane. Sometimes you just have to abandon this and start over. Trust me, not all days are smooth days in CAD land. I'm going to turn on 3D Sketch for a second. I'm going to throw a point on our other tube there. Okay, and then I'm going to make that also. Actually, I'm just going to do a distance of 2.5 millimeters. Okay, then I'm going to turn 3D Sketch back off. Now let's see if I end up with what I wanted. So now I should be back on my normal sketch plane. Yes, okay. Telling you, not all days are smooth days. And it's early in the morning. Let's hope everybody's day improves. Hey, I missed a thing. Upside down. Thank you, sir. Thanks for STL Sunday Resurrection. Grab a beer on me. You know what? After a rough stream, that could be it. This is sometimes why STL Sunday had to go away, because it was not always productive. Just I'm going to fix that point just to make sure. I had to turn 3D Sketch back on because now I want to do a coincident with these 2 points. Ha! Forcing it to do what I want. Even though it's barely off plane, but that's okay. Throw our 10 millimeter radius in there again. We're just going to hit end for the moment. We're going to do new body again. We could leave it at the same large diameter, or I could also, I mean, if I want to get, I may do this even. If I go down to 0.125 inches and make the extra stuff that comes off of here out of 1/8 inch solid, it's smaller. It's super easy to manipulate. I don't love that these things have to come up here to be as wide, so I don't hate that. Then I could also do that top bar. I think that would be reasonable to do. Yeah, I don't hate that. What do you guys think? Should we do the top bar around the top of the hood? Just to kind of out. I don't normally do a lot of those, but I feel like it might look good on here. Let's see. We're going to do it on that same. And I hate how many sketches. Oh yeah, scale point. Grill guard is a scale point. Can you get a scale point for a grill guard and a bull bar, or is it only one or the other? Okay, so we're gonna do it on that same plane there. something to tie something to tie it. We'll call this the rug bar, like Vidya says, really ties it all together. So I'm going to make this, we'll say, easy on myself, and I'm going to just snatch these line segments to there. And then we're just going to go from that point straight down. Now this won't be perfectly straight down, but because like I said, that bar was a little bit cocked. So we're just going to do, I'm faking this projection line. We're going to do a 3-point arc. Where's, give me that midpoint. There it is. About like that. Now I can also a couple more lines just for good measure. Oh, we also know that that one was parallel to that. See, perfect. Now now I know where to roughly terminate that line. I did all of that just for something stupid. You're all welcome. Okay, so I don't need that. Oh, I need it, but I just turned it to construction. So now we're gonna do tube. Oops, finish sketch first. Then tube. Pipe, whatever that. I hate calling it pipe. Oops. Pipe. New body. That's subtle, but not bad. I don't hate that. Just a simple little grill guard around the front. Maybe protects the front of my forged carbon hood. Does your bumper need to maintain full width during the entire course? Could you build a good-looking bumper then 3D print sleeves to get it to full width? It's a good point. However, to get full bumper points for metal, it has to be all metal. So otherwise, like breakaway bumpers, don't hate it. But I think that actually, yes, it does need, if you fall out of spec during the course, I think that you can technically be penalized. Not terrible, not terrible. I don't hate what we've got going on. I do have to attach it to the, if it broke off, you would be out of spec. Yeah, that's what I thought. So, and Muddy Nuts RC, thank you as well for your donation. Much appreciated. We're looking reasonable at this point. Again, the tie-in. Tie-in is something we have to deal with. I don't mind having a minimalistic appearance, but probably want to do a lower bar and then possibly just plate in between the two in the front. You can use your $3,000 notch tool for that bumper. That whole thing is probably less than $200. There you go. And that is a very reasonable amount for that tool. If that tool was available for twice that money, I probably would have bought it. Okay. I'm doing a lot of staring because that's just part of CAD work. You just sit here and you stare a lot. You're like, does this look bad? Do I hate this? Lower bar, plate to tie them together, add fairleads for another point. That's what I'm thinking as well. Just a simple plate between them. I'll cut for a fairlead, cut out the fairlead, or have a fairlead bolt on and be in fairly good shape. Fairlead. Oh. Okay. So let's look at doing I'm going to do a construction plane. If you zoom way out, it makes it easy to select the plane sometimes. So I'm just creating that one because I'm going to bring it down and I want to grab that, which is -21. Interesting. Didn't think it'd be that far. But I'm going to add 0.476 is 3/16, right? Oops. 4.76 millimeters is 3/16. So I have 2.38. So we're going to add 2.38 to bring it up a little bit. That gives me a flat plane that is just off the bottom. So now I'm going to just go from the midpoint out like that. And I wonder if I could get back up to that. I don't know if it is doable. I am in a 2D sketch. I'm going to go back to 3D for a second. So I'm going to grab that little guy and we're going to rotate my plane 90 degrees. And I'm just going to guesstimate my position. Again, it's tube work, so kind of all beguess and begod, as they say. As my dad said when I was growing up a lot. Let's see what this looks like. We're going to go back to, what is exactly 3/16? 3/16 times 29.4, 4.7625. Okay, so I'm a little forward. We could, this isn't the proper way to do this. It's not improper either, but I'm just doing this for the sake of, hold on a second. I'm going to turn off a tire. I'm just going to rotate that tube by hand until it looks like I want. How's that look? Yeah. 20 degrees off. Good enough. Let it think. Thinking. Okay, so there we go. So that tube would dive into that one. It would give us, I could notch the chassis enough to make this work. We would still be using this plate, but this plate's gonna have to be modified to also, I'll probably have it tie in a little bit to the upper as well. That's going to be the most overcomplicated and expansive bumper in RC. This is not that complicated at all. Because the thing is that this tube here, it's got bend in one plane. So I'll have my template and we're just gonna drop it on there, bend, bend. I'll be able to make it exactly to the template. This one will be the same, bends in one plane. This one, like this bumper will actually be really easy to fabricate. And it's all just because I'll have templates for every tube. And I can go through that here if you guys are somewhat interested in how to make tube templates. It's very easy. So I don't hate any of this. Let's mirror some stuff and get a better look at it all. Mirror this body and this body and this one, and this one's going to overlap, but that's okay. We can fix that. Mirror on that plane. Don't join. New bodies. We'll do the joining ourselves. I've worked tube bending for 15 years. Then how do you think this one will be difficult? This one will be very simple. Join that. Join those two. And we'll join these. I think the overlap will be just fine. Yep, still worked out great. So, print it first. Yeah, we could. I mean, this is 1/8" tubes and things like that. I mean, the Prusa will probably be able to handle it without too much. So, there we go. Yes, I need to learn tube templates out of Fusion. Okay, we can do that. It shouldn't take too long. Now, this should get me enough coverage of the front. It will get me enough coverage width-wise for my, it'll give me enough coverage width-wise for the rules there. This one will also end up long, and I can trim it to need. Let's see, the top piece is 2 different radii with no straighten. Yeah, but that's only 1/8" rod. That stuff will be easy to just kind of work by hand over a small die. That thing's actually, I'm not too worried about that. Or I can 3D print myself a bend template and I can just keep bending and matching to it. All this stuff will be, that's not going to be that bad. Especially being out of 1/8". It's actually a really good reason to do this out of 1/8 because it makes things easy. 1/8" solid rod, you can, if you wanted to, you could use heat to get it to bend easier. But this type of stuff, if you have that, 1/8" is a great use. A couple gussets for some lights. I'll have headlights, and I don't know if I'm going to add any more lights. Otherwise, lights would be a good option. Need a golden eagle on that. But in general, I don't think that bumper looks overly terrible. I'm glad Brett pushed me on going to tube. It was so we need to create. We're going to create that little plate between them. Which, if you've ever been in this, you're like, that's probably a little bit of a pain. If you know, trying to. So if you go into construction and you go, there's tangent through. Let's see, tangent plane. That's just one. Oh, God dang it! I thought that they had through 2 planes. Well, we can do it another way. Since we have sketches for all of these, we just have to go find those sketches. So that one. Find in browser. Will it go there for me? Of course not, because it freaking hates me. So we've got a couple of our last sketches there that we're just going to turn on. Is that one already on? That one's already on. Sweet. So I turned those sketches on, which is going to allow me to go construct through 3 points. And we're going to just click that point and that point and that point. And then it gives us a plane at the midpoint of our tubes. We'll hit OK. Solid copper would be easy to make and give. Oh, I don't want weight. Weight, especially weight up on the chassis. I want this thing to be as light as possible. Tube will help this be lighter. I'll use thin sheet metal where possible. But yeah, I want this thing to be light, not heavy. So now for this, I probably will just want to go to keep it from being too, well, one, without being too difficult to fit this plate in there and then weld it while bending everything. I am going to, well, first I'm going to turn off these bodies just because they're getting in the way of selecting the stuff that I want. I can probably turn off these sketches too, because we've already determined that we're far enough out. Was that one? Which one is this? Yeah, it is that guy. Okay. So we'll probably just do a plate that goes from there to there. And then I'll go out to that radius. I guess I could have just projected these, which would have been better. And now these are all going to be to the center line of that tube, but I'm okay with that for the meantime. I'll show you what I mean. So we're going to extrude that. Let's just go like some point. Uh-oh. Let's see. It's 0.1 millimeter, not 0.1 millimeter, but if I go 0.025, that's 635. We'll go some 0.635 for now. I can get thin steel that is easy to cut at that thickness. I'm just going to mirror it now for effect. We can join those, that's fine. So we want to keep this, that steel does not need to be thick at all. It can be nice and thin. And now we're going to turn these tubes back on. So simple plate between them. Like I said, it cuts into, it gets through the center of those tubes. If I want to have this laser cut, for example, I can just do, I can have those tubes, we can do a subtract, which up here in the combine function, you would select the target body, which is that plate that we just made. Tool bodies, we'd select both of these tubes, and then we'd want to hit cut. Now, it will delete those two tubes unless you click keep tools. So we're going to do that. Keep tools. And now our plate ends right at where it intersected the tubes. So if you didn't know, now you know. Gives us a simple plate. And we do need to add a fairlead or fairlead, mount. So we'll just do another sketch. We'll do a slot cut. Let's do 4 millimeters wide, and we'll do 20 millimeter opening. That might be a little big. Let's go 16 millimeter opening. Turn off 3D. I just need to get this centered. Vertical. And we'll throw a dimension on there. 7 is fine. And we also need a couple of construction on. We'll go 2.5 millimeter holes because we'll run some 2 millimeter hardware in there. And there we go. 2.5. I'm going to throw those construction lines back in between. Make sure everything is oh, actually, I'm going to, I'll probably cut my own fairlead, so I don't really need to make these, or 3D print it. It doesn't really matter at this point, but these are just the holes for it. So we're going to cut through that plate. But I could almost make a full 3D printed plastic skid for the front of this thing. Not a terrible idea. Just to let it slide a little bit easier. You could put a little bit of an indent around it where the fairlead is to get you fairlead points still. So that'll work just fine there. Now, we still need to tie this thing in, which should not be difficult. We're going to do a sketch on that side plane. Now, let's do this in a real funky way, just because. I'm going to, I made that nice. I like what I did there. Good work, me. This is not how I would actually do this, but I mean, I say that. It's going to work just fine. I don't know why I say that I wouldn't do it, but let's just go all the way back with this for now. And let's, I'm not saying that I'm bringing it to where it is. You'll see what I mean. Give me a moment. And about like that. I'm just like throwing this stuff together. Oh, see, it's a good reason to go ahead and look at a different angle because that was unnecessary. Actually, it's fine. For what I'm doing, I'll show you. We're going to make it that width. New body still. I could just throw a hole in one of these and make it a D-ring mount as well. I don't know that I want D-rings on the front. I don't. I'm taking that back immediately. But I'm going to join that original bracket and this bracket, and hit OK. And then, like I just talked about a minute ago, we're going to do, oh, why did that not? Like the faces didn't join coincident. That's weird. Oh, I know why. I hit keep tools. I do not want to keep tools. I want them to all join together. There we go. That's why. So I'm going to do a cut. We're going to do the target body and tool bodies. We're going to select those top and bottom tubes. We'll do a cut. Keep tools is on. Yeah, D-rings on the back only. Very much agree. But now I've got this thing and I can see where the tubes are actually going to hit. So I'm going to isolate that part. If I'm laser cutting, it's not going to have coped cuts and things like that. So we're going to do a cut through here. Technically, we can just, I mean, I could like try and make that cut myself, so I'd want to leave as much material as possible, which isn't a bad plan. But what I definitely don't want is, you know, things like this, which it was captured and it would have to go through. So I'm just going to look at trimming this thing up a little bit by, is it gonna give me a center point on this? It's not, but that's okay. Probably go more, even if we just go, yeah, let's just go straight back. I can cut the chassis as needed. Your custom notcher could do it. I mean, it could, but I might have to do that one with a hand notcher, because that is not for these situations. I need to make sure. Oh. And we're just gonna, I'm making sure that it doesn't have like an actual undercut of any sort. It's just for simplicity of it all, because simplicity is really what matters to me. Something in these areas. I'm just going to grabbing a couple of the other lines as well, because I want to simplify this plate, because I'm thinking already I'm going to send this off for laser cutting. Why did it do that? And we're just going to cut it all the way through. And left a little hanger there. Let's see if I can just, yeah. Just throw a little 1 millimeter radius on some stuff, get it cleaned up. We'll unisolate this. And I could maybe adjust that. Maybe I'll leave that piece of material there, and I will. It's hitting at such an extreme angle that I probably do want to capture it. But this one down here would give me that nice cradled look. I don't, oh, that's the previous. But that would cradle the bottom, give me a good place to actually braze this onto. I'll probably braze this whole bumper rather than TIG weld. Did you just say you were making this simple? But I'll adjust that top one, but that's probably about what I'll do. And that is a nice and simple front bumper design. Now I could add a small stinger, small brush bar, or no, that would still, this is a grill guard. I think I could do I don't want a big stinger, just a very, it actually doesn't even need to go forward. It can just go a small hoop upwards. Which, should we do that real quick? Let's do the templates real quick, like video asked. So, to do that, let me get back to, so I can see some of this stuff. I got it back to the top of all my sketches. 4 bazillion of them. Scale metal supplies has some nice spiderweb gusses that could look good in that one. I have those, but they're probably way too big for this bumper. I've actually got some of them right. I know why. So this bumper's not that big though, so it probably wouldn't fit in here. But maybe I'll do a cool top plate with my HD in there, because that could be fun and unnecessary. So I'm all in. Okay, templates. So the first thing we need to do is we need to find the parts that we want to do. So like this body, and I'm going to right click on it and create a component from that. So then we're going to go down, and where it has, so it's in a separate section right now. It doesn't show up as a body up top. It's its own component with its own history and all that kind of stuff. So that is what we're going to do. Now, can I right click and make a drawing here? Yeah, right. So you right click on the component and then go create drawing in the menu. It's going to pop us up to a new page. Any minute now. A two bend stinger is class. What? What does that mean? What does that mean? Okay. Selected components. I'm just going to do that one for right now. Create new, blah, 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 contents. Okay. 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper is how I have my stuff set up. Give me a moment. If you extend the inside of the upper piece where it joins the bar, you can just file down the outside to fit the two contacts rather than if you extend the inside of the piece where it joins. I'll have to reread what you're suggesting there. So here is the sheet of paper. Now, if I just click, it's not going to be the right view. Actually, this one I would actually just need a top view. And then I could just drop it in there. Now I need this scale to be 1:1 to be a good template. But literally that is all I need for this bend template. I could just hit print, and then I would have a bend template. Like it's that one is the easiest because that was a flat plane, you know. So there's just nothing to it. But there's a bend template. What? Now, like I said, that was the easiest example. Let's go back to it. Did you mean to misspell commando? Nope. Definitely meant to have two M's, but didn't. Like you can see, this one, this file, it's spelled correctly, commando with two M's, but in that one, I just fat fingered it. So, you know, this is the mold for the cowl, carbon fibre, which also is in the vise right behind me right now. I had to bring it in here because it was cold outside last night. That that it was like gonna take forever. So I'm gonna demold the carbon fiber tonight around 7 o'clock because that is that will be the 24-hour mark. I'm nervous, but okay. The harder one, this one down here. This, you can't just do a front view. You can't just do a top view. Like none of that is just right. So I need to get it at the proper angle, which it's, you know, it's a little bit. Now, one thing we do know is that it's at 20 degrees. We already measured that previously. So let's do that one. Right click, create components from bodies. And now we're going to create a drawing from that one. All drawings have errors somewhere. Yep. That was my life in engineering. Did you do the fenders yet? I did do the fenders. Oh, I did a fender. One fender. I have not done the other side because I have to make new molds for it, the whole deal, you know. So yes, that, hit OK. Take us into drawing land. Now I don't do this all the time, so we could find that I stumble for a moment here. Apologies, but now the it is a flat part still. That is the important part. Yes, sorry, Brett. It is a flat part still. So when I bring this in at a 1-to-1 scale, I actually don't want to bring it in on the front. I believe I normally bring it in on the right, like this. And that also, I think this is where I've measured before as well. Ah, damn it. Base view. Waiting for it to redo. Not the model. I hate when it does this. Damn it. How did I get to the proper one? Don't want that part. I just want the one piece. Isn't that a pain in the ass that I don't remember how to fix? We're going to close that. Don't save. Back to the front. Back to the front. A terrible movie. Hold, please. We'll get back. This is because rarely are all of your tubes either flat to the top, flat to the front. So this is an important thing if you ever have the desire to do these things in CAD. Create drawing. Select one. Yes, that's the one that I want. Okay. I don't remember why I'm sure that there's a way to do that where you can select it again properly, but like I said, this isn't something I do often. I just do it every once in a while, and then sometimes I have to go back and forth and just do it the way that I know how. Because that's the way of the world. So we're going to go right. I'm going to start this at a 1-to-1. We're going to drop that in there, at least for now. Hit OK. Now, I think that I can do a rotate of this. I'm going to, yeah, so the rotate button next to the move. We're going to see if I got this correct. So, and then I can type in my angle of 20. Now I've got my angle. Then I can do my projected view, select that, and drag it over. And there, yes. So now I have my proper projected view of a flat tube on the right plane. If I was, I wonder if I can do this again. I'm going to just screw this up and put it back to like 20 again and hit OK. I don't know if it changed that one or not. But if I had it rotated off, you can see that you're not looking evenly down at the ends. So while this looks like it's still a flat tube and it'd be fairly close, your bend radius would not be right, because the further and further this gets up to 90, you lose more and more of the actual bend degree properly. So It's incorrect. This would not give you the proper information. So that is why you need it to be at the proper view orientation to give you the correct template. So that is the importance of 2D drafting in the 3D world. I am a material girl in a material world. I'm thinking about changing up this plate and making it go in and be more vertical to give me like the fairlead at more of a vertical angle. Not vertical, but more, be more complicated, have a bend in it. You know, things like that that are unnecessarily complicated. But maybe not. Maybe we leave it as is. Who's to say? So, that was my project. This will probably be my bumper. I'll probably, like I said, I'll modify that to fix that to be more, give me a proper landing space. But what's up, Chibs? I haven't seen you in a while. And I think that's kind of the route that we'll go. I'll probably put a top plate on here. I'll probably tie it, that's what I'll do. I'll tie it into this plate as well. It won't be the same material. I'll braze it in, but I'll fill it in. I'll throw the HD logo in there and kind of class up the front bumper a little bit. But I'm sure you guys are just about sick of looking at this project, but it's the project I've got to work on. And if you want STL Sunday at all, this is what you're going to have to get. What I've got to work on is what you've got to see, because I don't have time for anything else. But I'm glad to have a front bumper on here because I think it's going to be about like what I want. You know, these I'll probably extend, like in actual fabrication, I bet I'll extend these a little bit and then maybe throw a second bend in it. Just tie it back so that it still meets my maximum length, but it follows the fender just a little bit more, a little bit more clearance and everything, protection, whatnot. I don't hate that front bumper at all. Oh, I was going to do that quick bull bar. I just want to do that because you don't have to watch if you don't want to. You can leave. I won't be mad at you. But I do want to add, will it let me just select that? Yes, it does. And it put it at the midpoint for me. Thank you, CAD program. Okay, where'd my sketch dialog box go? Well, that's interesting. Bah. Hold on. I don't. It's not collapsed here. Oh, I didn't actually create the sketch. I just created the plane. That's why. Or did I even create the plane? It says that I did. There we go. Sometimes, man. Some days you're, I don't know, there's lots of sayings. Some days you're the pig, some days you're the blanket. I know, it doesn't make any sense. I'm just projecting these points so that I have them in my 2D sketch. And I'm going to create a very go about to the midpoint. Just going to drop down to my origin. That's not what the tube will do, of course, but I'm going to throw my radius in this now so that I can look at it. We're going to go 10. Probably bring this up a little bit more, not too high. I don't like a very tall brush guard, bull bar, whatever you want to call it. Let's say 10 millimeters. And let's throw a... That's a 54-degree angle. We stand that up a little bit more. Oh, that's the wrong way. Let's go back to 55. Taller to the moon. Oh, look like one of them big old ironing board stingers you see. Terrible, terrible. We're going to start with that. We're going to go to, I'm probably going to throw a little bit of angle on this, but I might do it the way I did earlier with just rotating the tube, just because I'll be able to look at it and see what angle that I actually want. New body, we're at 476. Make it huge, be a man. Hello, Jesse. Let's mirror said tube. Oof, terrible. Don't like it at all. This is a very narrow front bumper. Nope, that is bad. That is ugly. I hate it. So my second option will be to delete all of this. Forget that ever happened. Undo that plane as well. Ugh. So the other option will be to start it further back on these tubes and then bring it forward over the top of it and back down. But in general, I'm not going to do that right now because I don't know if I like it at all. So I'm going to leave that as is for the moment. There we go. Okay. Well, forget the whole last part of that thing we just talked about. Don't do what I do. Don't believe me for any of it that I say. So the good news is that I've got my front bumper designed. I need to add it to the list of things that I've got to do for the class 1 still. This is not a complete list whatsoever, but it's it's build front bumper. At least I don't even think I had design front bumper on here, so I can't even cross something off the list. I'm going to finish up some of this design, like with the plates that I talked about, and I'm going to send that off to send, cut, send again, likely, and have that stuff all made. I feel like I should think about combining some of the, maybe look at some class 2 things and see about that. So, does Autolite still make the one? What? I don't know what we're talking about. We left when you said it was okay. All right. Do you guys have any other questions? It's 11:30, went an hour and a half. We got something accomplished. I got something accomplished for one of my projects. If you guys learned anything, I'll be surprised. I think that it was successful enough of a day for me to say that I did something, because I have a lot of work to do. I'm going to do some filming on this project today because I've got an episode of Road to the Scale Nationals coming up on Wednesday. So I've got stuff. I had a question above. What'd you say, Mike J? Was it a reasonable question? I highly doubt it, but we're going to go find it. It literally will not let me scroll up. There it goes. I see your taller to the moon question. Yeah, I don't see any of your other questions, so you have to type it again. What is the thread size of the Vanquish Lynx? M4. M4 threads, Brian. Can I see the body so far? You mean the real one? Well, the real one is here, but you can see the first forged carbon part there. the fender. Take the lid off. It's wild strong, but it's way thicker than it needs to be. I I just did not. I underestimated the strength of this stuff, and I could have gone a third of the thickness, like 1 millimeter thick. But how deep into the project that I am, there was no way that I was going to go back and like redesign all that stuff. So it's a learning experience. I'm just moving forward. I'm loving the project though, so I'm not mad at it. It could be. It's a super reasonable process to do, I think, for these type of trucks. And like in terms of if I do it next time and go further, it's just you know it's something I'll definitely explore more in the future. But I have a lot of parts to get done for this time still, and I got no time to go back and start redoing all of them as far as the CAD design goes. So, anyway, what was Mike J's? Why is this thing not letting me scroll? Aardvark Spleen, thank you, sir. Thanks for going over the templates. No problem. Hopefully, it was helpful. Josh, did you see the news out of MIT about 2D polymer that's as strong as steel? No, I did not. That's interesting. Is it actually accessible? And thanks for the template stuff. No problem. See. Mike J asked if the Stinger is about an inch above the roof, would it cause the truck to roll on its side in a rollover? I mean, I don't I don't know. I would never have that ever because you would. I mean, you have bad. It's terrible. It's a terrible idea. You wouldn't fit through places anymore. You'd end up, and probably not. Are you going with the Jurassic Park paint job? I don't think that I'll paint it. If it's all carbon fiber, there's no reason to paint it. Let's see. Anyone know of good upgrades for Viterra Ascender axles? Just busted mine. A good upgrade for Viterra Ascender axles are Axial SCX-10-2 axles. And get rid of Viterra axles. But seriously, get rid of the axles. Go to something different. You'll be much better off. Is the Commando the new Vanquish body? Not a chance. There's zero chance. It does not look good enough to be a production body. It is not for that type of thing. It is a exercise in fabrication for me only. Trust me, this is not a good enough looking body to be an actual production body. It was just a thought to avoid a touch. Now, like seriously, you'd end up like you got higher. You wouldn't fit. It's definitely not a thing. Well, sounds like a plan. All right, that is going to be all for today. I'm going to get to work on the huge list of things that I want to get accomplished today that I'm sure I will be about 30% as successful as I really hope. So hope you guys have a good Sunday. We'll see you soon for all of the normal rest of the videos and things like that. So later.